Hi guys, welcome back to the Astro Imaging channel. Tonight's session is going to be hosted by Anna Morris. First, a couple things. First, I want to thank David Alt for hosting last week. I couldn't make it, so thank you, David, for covering for me. We haven't had an image of the week in a couple of weeks, but and we're going to continue. We're going to start back over with that next week. But Anna was our image of the week winner last week. So I am going to pull up her image, give her a few minutes to talk about her image, but then she's going to be able to jump right into her presentation. So Anna, you feel free to start talking as I pull up this image that was on my screen somewhere. I always try and have this ready, and I never do. Here we go. Now my screen share button isn't working. Let's see if I can get this. My screen share button isn't working. I'm sorry, I can't share it, but you guys know the image. Anna, feel free to chat about the image a bit. I'm going to see if I can get this to come up in the meantime.
Yeah, I've got it on my, I can screen share if you want.
Yeah, if you can screen share it.
Yeah, give me just a second if I can get this working right. Is that on there now?
We can see it, yes.
It's in Photoshop, but yeah. So it's my bubble nebula from, I don't know, about a month ago or so. Just hydrogen alpha and oxygen. I just did a bicolor because it was a really cloudy night, and I planned a couple of targets for the night, but the only one that happened to be in a hole in the clouds was this one. So I stayed on it most of the night. Even still, it was a short night. I only did 3 hours of hydrogen alpha and I think an hour and a half of the O3. And then just they're on the 3 nanometer Astrodome filters and my 80 millimeter Orion ED, and processed in Photoshop after I stacked it. Yeah, so I mean, what questions you have about it, and happy to answer anything. So.
All right, well, I see our viewers have already started to come into the room, so I'm going to just remind you guys, ask your questions. That's what this is all about. Ask anything, and I'll call them right out to Anna. And I'm going to try this time not to beg for questions at the end. I'm going to just ask them in advance. So that's basically it. Anna, it's a great image. I never even realized there was that much O3 in the center of it. I feel like I'm always chasing O3. But
yeah, I wish I could have gotten more on it, and also I wanted to get sulfur. I wanted to do a full narrowband, but it just wasn't happening that night. So eventually, hopefully, I'll get some more and add into it because it's still a bit noisy with just the 4.5 hours 4x. Normally, I like to do at least double that, if not more. But not too bad for a cloudy night. So
yeah, not at all. All right, well, if you want to jump right into your presentation, you're welcome to go right ahead.
Okay. Adam asked me to talk about my actions, so I'm happy to take any questions for anyone that has any questions about them. But I was just going to run through a couple of them, basically using them on actually the hydrogen alpha of the bubble nebula I just showed. Just show just a couple basics of it, and then go through any questions you guys have about them and anything you guys want to know. So I've got a couple. I've gone through a couple renditions just because every time I go through, I tweak things, and because I make them as I use them. So sometimes I find out I come across better ways to do it, or more efficient ways, or just things that make things pop better. So I tweak them as I go for the updates. And that's basically what the channel process one is. It's kind of the one I almost always start out with. And it runs through levels and curves and pops up some options for you to adjust as you go. And most all these that pop up, you can customize as you want. I have some defaults on there, but based on your image, you're going to want to adjust them. And then, sorry, I'm just going through really quickly here just to kind of show where it gets from there. And yeah, so basically the channel process is just a bunch of levels and curve stretches to just start pulling out detail in the image. And kind of the whole action set is just a way to do a quick process. I use a bunch of them when I process, and I go through and spend a few more hours fine-tuning. But you can at least go through and can get a decent-ish image in 10-15 minutes just to kind of see what I've got and where I need to go. So that was just a mild channel process stretch. And simple stretching is the same. It's just levels and curves. And in it, it's got a lot of prompts. And if you use it more than once, the simple stretching is basically made for beginners who don't know anything about levels and curves. So it's got a lot of prompts telling you what to do as you go. And if you don't want to listen to those, you can just turn them off, like all the stopped ones, uncheck them as you go, and it won't pop those up. And then enhanced dust lanes is just gonna, let me pull out a little bit more levels here so you can see the difference it's gonna make. And then the enhanced dust lanes is just gonna pop out a few of the dust. I mean, I use it mainly for nebulas because that's mainly what I shoot, but I have also used it for galaxies to pull out some of the dust arms in it. And all these I keep fairly subtle, so you can play them more than once if you want. And they also add their own history things, so you can go to the before and then the apply image is the after. If you don't like what it did or you want to see the difference it made, you can pop back and forth that way. Dynamic Enhance is basically a combination of just soft light and screen layers. It's just making some layers to kind of enhance the brightness areas in here. And I left it so it's not flattened like some of the others, because depending on how bright the nebula or galaxy you're doing, you're going to want to adjust the opacity in these to get a better view of that you want, and then you can just go in and flatten the image. And then reduce star bloating is basically for if you have like one bright star, you're going to select it and do that. And the star size for the full photo is just going to do that, and it's very subtle. So that, because I didn't want to overdo it, and so you can do it multiple times, and it's just going to slowly bring those down. And several of these I kept purposefully so they don't make huge differences. That way, if you just want to tweak a little bit, you can, or you can easily just click play a couple times if you want. And that's the same with the smooth image and the noise reduction. They're just using a little bit of, the smooth image is using lens blurs, fades, and noise reduction here. And then the noise reduction is using Gaussian blurs in various layers to just pull out some of the background noise out of it. I mean, if you have other things like Noise Ninja and whatnot, you can always use those. This is just kind of a, I don't know, want to say one-stop shop kind of for at least basic processing. And as I get requests, I try to add more in. The remove stars, I have it for various image sizes, and it's not going to be perfect, but it uses multiple layers of dust and scratches to pull out the stars. And you can always tweak the values in those as you want, or ask me, and I'm happy to do that too. If you send me your image, I can tweak it for you. But after it goes through, you'll still have some star remnants, especially with brighter stars. And the easiest way to get rid of it for the starless image is just use cloning. Sorry, my computer's been a bit slow. My Mac is slowly dying on me here, so I'm going to have to get a new one. But this, like most of them, have a prompt to tell you what to do. And so that's, sometimes depending if you have bright areas like this one, you can see it pulled out some of the detail in the bubble. So with bright nebulas and whatnot, I would copy and then go back to the history for the before and then just paste it over. And then you can just use, use the eraser tool or use layer masking to pull in the details of the nebula without adding in the stars. And like this one right here was a star. And the clone tool, with the last couple versions of Photoshop, the content aware clone does actually pretty well for not adding in extra detail and just masking where it is and kind of reading what's there. So you don't have to go through with the healing brush, which you can do as well, either using normal or replace. But lately I've just been using a lot of the spot healing brush. And so you go through, and it's a little time consuming to get it perfect, but go through and all the remnants of the stars, remove them with that one. Let's see what other ones are the main ones here. This is just a monochrome, so I can't really show the boost star colors, but I can pull up the There you go, the final one there. This is just a bicolor, so I don't really have a lot of star color in here, but it'll at least enhance the little bit of blue and whatnot from the bicolor. Ideally, at some point, I'll go back and get some RGB to add for star color for this, but I didn't have an RGB pulled up. So it's just going to basically select the stars using various masks, use match color to increase the saturation. And any of these you're welcome to tweak around by dropping down, see what they do, turn off different parts if you don't like a certain thing they do, etc. And yeah, I'm always happy to try to tweak them for you and add new ones. Like I said, mainly this is just, you know, I started out with my processing ones, and as I get requests, I add some more, and as I go, I tweak some ones. Like I've got a bicolor one here, but I'm still working on that. I had it on a beta action set for a while, and it did pretty well that way, and so I went ahead and added it in this last version, but it's still a tweak, and it'll probably be tweaked a bit for the last one. Same with the HARGB, adding in the hydrogen alpha to an RGB image, which that one's been on the last few versions, and it's pulled out things. There's also ones that'll just save you time, like adding in your LRGB together, same with RGB. And then there's ones down here that I haven't really used much lately, but I was requested to add them in by a lot of people. So I'm still tweaking them, but like the reduced vignetting and gradient reduction and all. But I use things, like if I need them, I use things like gradient exterminator and whatnot. So I haven't tweaked them a bit for a while. So I kind of go on based on feedback on those, whether I need to tweak them. The star layer separate is basically you need to do the remove stars, but add that as one layer, and use your main image as another layer to subtract the stars. So you have the stars and your star list in one, so you can tweak separately. Honestly, it still needs a little work because of the cloning you have to do for the one. It's not always going to be perfect, but it gets you along the way and kind of shows you some steps to do. That's a really quick run through for them, because I'd rather go through and do some questions and see what questions you have about them and processing with them, etc., and go from there. So.
Okay, so Alex is actually asking what is an action, and I know he knows the answer, but maybe just in case there's some newcomers out there, what is an action? What is an action set? How do we get them? And when he says get them, I'm assuming he says where do we get them? Where's your website? How do we install them?
Okay.
Maybe give us some info on that.
I can. An action is basically just a group of sets in Photoshop that you do that you record. And there is a window in Windows Actions. You do that, and when you first get Photoshop, it'll just have these default actions here. And you can very easily record your own. If you use the same set of steps every time over, you can go in and do a new set, which is just basically going to be a folder that has different actions in it, or just a new action. And label it whatever you want, and then it's going to have this little red record button. And then it's going to record every step you do. And so when you're done, you click the stop button, and that's recorded your action. And so basically these are just a group of different steps that I did over and over and over, and I was like, well, you want to save time because you don't want to do them all the time, so now you can just click it and click play. And so the action set is just a folder with a bunch of those different actions in it. As far as where you can, sorry, I'm going the wrong way, where you can get them, mine I have on my website. It's www.eprizephoto.com. And then I've got astronomy features, and then my actions are the top one there. And it kind of shows you some examples of them, what's in the current version, and some frequently asked questions I get about them, etc. Mine, they don't work with elements because I've never had elements, so I haven't created a separate set for that. But from CS2 all the way up to current CC, they've worked because I've had every version, and so I tweak them in there as they go and back check them, etc. And so I answer a bunch of questions here, but that's where you can get mine. So.
Eric is saying if there's one thing that we'd like to speed up is the creation of a tone-mapped Hubble palette.
Mm-hmm.
The removal of stars, retaining nebulosity detail. So maybe, I know you gave us a little bit on that star removal, but maybe go into some detail on the two of those.
Yeah. Actually, I do that. So kind of got to, if you just want to do it with actions, kind of got to combine a couple with the star removal. And then the Hubble palette creation I've got basically is like the RGB combined, but it will do it for your narrowband. And it will also tweak the colors for it so it's more towards the Hubble palette one. So for the tone mapping, what I do, and I think what it's generally done from what I read on various forums and whatnot, is so you remove the stars, and if I can find the action, because there you go. Move the stars and then go through and do as best you can cloning out the remnants of the stars, and then you basically do a super stretch of it to pull out all the nebula detail you can, and combine that. And then you basically do a whole process, well, at least what I do is do a whole processing again with the stars in, and then layer them together to add the stars back in using lighten. So the lighten is going to bring out all the nebula detail that you super stretched before, but it's also going to bring in the stars that weren't in the previous one because they're brighter. So I don't have one. Hold on, let me turn the camera so I can play with my hard drive. I think I've got saved one stretched here that I can show you. So let me pull it up while the next question is asked, and I will get back to hopefully show an example there if I can pull up my hard drive. So.
Okay.
Sorry, I know I talk quickly when I.
Yeah, no problem. Well, Tolga's just, first of all, Tolga said you love your picture. It's 3D awesome. Dylan O'Donnell comments, great set of actions. Unless I missed this already, how does the bicolor action work? I know that often the O3 is boosted to match the intensity of the H alpha. Is there any control over this boosting to tweak for taste?
There is. With bicolor action, I'm still tweaking it as well. But basically, here, let me pop back on the screen share and show you if I can get this right buttons clicked. Okay. So let me pull up two and I'll show you. It pulls up, so you need to have your hydrogen alpha process and your oxygen process. And generally when I'm doing a bicolor, I'll overstretch the O3. So like here is just the basic stretch for the O3, just running through the actions a little bit earlier without doing any of the extra stuff. And so I'll stretch it a little bit more. And then for the bicolor, you have to have it saved, and it will ask you to open them up. And then it will pop up a prompt for levels, so you can adjust the colors to taste. Like you were asking, you can adjust the strength of various ones that way using levels and curves in there. So let me, and oh, I forgot to align the same, sorry. Forgot they were different sizes. But I can fix that real quick. So basically it'll pop up the levels and ask you to adjust the various strengths of them. And so you can adjust to taste that way. And it helps with the adjustment of the colors, so there's not just so you don't have to just wing it as much, depending on how strong and how much you have shot. Like this one, I didn't shoot as much on one as the other, and so I need more, so I had to stretch it a little bit more, and to get it to match. And so I did a lot of extra processing other than just the actions, but it gets you part way there at least. So okay, so hydrogen alpha process and O3, and they're not going to be aligned, so the stars are there because I didn't pull up the aligned ones. But so it'll pull up a new layer here. I'll just show you this, even though they're not aligned and the stars look wonky. So you can go through each channel here and adjust it how you want. And so if you want it more orangish looking, more narrowband, you can adjust that way. If you want it more red, you can, to bring out the various strengths and the different ones. And I apologize for not having them aligned, so they look a little weird. But that'll hopefully at least answers the question of being able to at least adjust the intensity based on taste. So.
Yeah, I think it probably did. It's interesting, a lot of us use PixInsight, and but we also all use Photoshop. And the one thing we like about Photoshop is that immediate feedback. And in PixInsight, we're using pixel math, and then we're STFing, and then we're going back and forth. So it's interesting to see it done in Photoshop. When I got my mono CCD, I moved right over to PixInsight, almost feeling like I had to, but it's not really the case.
Yeah, I have PixInsight. I just haven't spent the time to get really in the weeds in it, and since I knew Photoshop so well, I haven't been motivated to. But I keep wanting to because I hear a lot of people using it. But I'm so used to Photoshop right now, I haven't switched over or combined the two yet. But I'm sure eventually I will end up combining to some. But Photoshop can do a lot on its own if you kind of dig in the weeds and play around with it a bit. So.
Yeah, you just have to use it. You have to figure out how to use it creatively.
Correct.
And PixInsight is like purely technical, so you really have to it's a commitment. You have to really spend time learning about it. And a lot of us are just, I think probably most of us are Photoshop centric. It makes more sense to us.
Yeah.
So as much as I like PixInsight.
Is the new version of Photoshop 32-bit? The CC version?
Can it process 32-bit? I don't believe you can do much with 32-bit files.
No, I think it most of them they ask you to step it down, but it did before as well. It can open them, but I think it prefers to step down to 16.
Right, you're still limited in the amount of things that you can do in 32-bit. Is that right?
Yeah, a lot of the steps and whatnot won't work in 32, and they've gotten better in that a lot more will work in 16, and they did, like previously, some wouldn't even work in 16, but they've gotten most of them working in 16 now, and they just don't have much 32 yet.
Let's see, I have a few questions. Does your actions, are they more for DSLRs, CCDs? They go both ways?
They go both ways. I've used them for both because I do shoot with my Nikon occasionally. Ones that you would have to, like for if you use the star removal, you're going to have to use the large image versus the small image and ones like that. But they can be used for both. If you can pull it up in Photoshop, they can be used for both, and they do fine with it. I mean, I did my M42 with my Nikon and M31 and whatnot as well, and I use them for it. So you can use them for both. I tend to shoot CCD, but they can definitely be used for both. So.
One of the things when people get into astrophotography, they don't really consider or think about processing much. Mm-hmm. And there's a lot to learn. And I noticed you said that a lot of your actions have stops or prompts to kind of walk people through. That sounds like a really valuable tool for a beginner. How do those work? What kind of prompts do you get?
Yeah, let me pull over here. Not all of them do, but a lot of them do, especially ones that are more basic-minded, like say simple stretching here. And it's going to go through and it's going to pop up here. Like it'll say set your black point just to, here, let me get the screen share here because I don't think I pressed the right button. There you go. It'll say set your black point, where you need to go and whatnot. So it'll tell you what to do, and you click. If you want to stop, that stops the action. If you click continue, then it's going to pull up what it asked you to, and then you can adjust what it said, click OK, and then it's going to pull up the next prompt for the next step. So a lot of them have that in there, and then if you've used them once or twice and get annoyed by them, you can very easily just uncheck the stops, and if you uncheck what says stop, that's going to uncheck the prompts. And so a lot of these will walk you through them, like this one. It goes through all the levels, tells you what to do. Same when it gets to curves. It does have some automatic ones, but like this one, it'll say adjust a curve, and kind of just give you a basic for it. The how-to on it as well, because I tried to write out at least decent, not super detailed, but at least basic instructions with the document that comes with it to tell you what to do along each step as it goes. And so for ones that don't have the prompts, there's that. And like even this one here, it says use the eyedropper and command to select your DSO. So it kind of walks you through it if you don't know Photoshop as well. And if that even still isn't covering it, then I'm always I mean, I try to respond to emails fairly quickly. Sometimes I get a little bit backlogged, but I tend to get back to a lot of people the same day and help out. And I, do custom actions. They'll send me their image based on size. Sorry, my computer is making sounds. And I'll get back with you based on your image. Can tweak things like the star removal, etc. For you guys. So.
Awesome. Now, we always joke around about people not wanting to spend so much money on Photoshop. They don't mind buying an expensive mount, but or spending this much on PixInsight, but your actions are only $15.
Correct. Yeah.
So I don't know. People here have paid more than that on just star removal actions, or probably paid 10 times that on noise reduction, and your actions are pretty much a bunch of tools all in one. So it does seem like a pretty good bargain.
Yeah, I mean, they're not gonna give you like depending on how advanced you are, it's not going to be up to the quality you want when you're done. But they're great for the first, like I still use them for like the first 3/4 of my processing, and then we'll use, if I need to, Gradient Exterminator and other noise programs, other stretching programs, etc. But it saves a lot of time. Like I can get a basic image in 20-30 minutes versus several hours is what I used to do. I mean, I know some people are much quicker at it than I am, but it gets you a good way there without having to spend a whole lot of time, because they're already saved. The steps are already saved in there that you would probably do anyways. You can just click play, and then it'll pop up. So.
Okay. Hamza is saying that he just bought Astro tools for Photoshop and has some awesome results already on M45. Are their actions being discussed redundant or complementary? Because he would love to add Annie's set to his collection. So I'm assuming he's talking about Carboni's tools.
Okay. Yeah, I think I believe some are redundant, but they're done in different ways. Because I haven't used his for a while, to be honest. I had his when I first started, and they were great, but I wanted them to do more, and so that's kind of how I started doing mine. Is I was like, all right, well, I need to, because I'm always doing the same steps anyways, and not even using those anymore. And so I kind of kept tweaking, and so for a while I went back and forth and used some of his and whatnot, and then used the new ones I did. And then I would get some requests because people didn't necessarily want to buy both. And so they're like, can you do this? And I mean, I didn't want to reproduce what he had, but some do similar things. So there are some that will be redundant, but I believe that a lot of them are complementary, and you can use both at the same time and get much better results. So.
All right, thank you. Yeah, in my experience, it's good to have a few different ways to do something in processing, because one of them may not work every time, and it's good to have a few different options.
Yeah, there's so many ways to do processing in so many different programs that, I mean, you can, we see that with, imaging challenges. People put out the data out there, and there are no two alike. There's so many different ways to process. So it all kind of depends on how you want your image to look at the end, and what processes you're familiar with, and how you like it, So.
Absolutely. So guys, I don't see any questions. If you guys have any more questions, I see more people filling up the room. So if you have any more questions, shout out. We have some time left, so we can pretty much discuss anything. I don't know if you had any specific stuff you wanted to add or talk about.
Sorry, no, I kind of talked really quickly through what I was going to. A habit of mine when I get going, I guess. But yeah, I mean, I think I covered at least the basic. I mean, if you want, I can go through some more of them, but I kind of went through the basic ones that I would use every time, and the other ones are kind of hit and miss based on the Hubble one, if you're going to use Hubble palette, and same with the bicolor, etc. And then ones you might not use as often, like the vignetting or gradient reduction and whatnot. I also have one that creates a watermark on there. So if you don't know how to do that, it'll pop one on your image for you. But yeah, like I said, I'm happy to ask questions, but I kind of talked through the actions really quickly. I'm sorry for that. So.
Well, no problem. After my notes on the actions, I was going to ask you what calibration and stacking program do you use?
Okay, I actually use a couple depending on what mood I'm in. I have a Maxim DL which I use, but I've kind of gotten in the habit of just using Nebulosity because I've had it forever, and it's a little bit of a pain as in it you have to manually click on all the stars, but I've always found it does pretty well, so I do that. Though most of the time lately I've been using Maxim for that and to get my stacks. So.
Gotcha. That I don't know. In PixInsight, you could use batch preprocessing script and see how it compares.
Yeah,
know
like I
if
said, I
you
have PixInsight now, and I've started using it, but I haven't used it that much to be reliable. I'm still learning it, just because I keep getting I'll get questions or say, hey, what do you think of this with PixInsight? And I'm like, I don't know. Or I go to star parties and everyone else is using it, so I'm still working on figuring it out, but yeah, I know it's got the stacking and everything in there as well that I could use, and I'll probably eventually end up going to that because I like Maxim, but it was just never updated, and it seems a bit out of date now. So.
Yeah, I never used Maxim. I only used Deep Sky Stacker before PixInsight. But that was the thing that kind of got my attention. I was like, wow, it did so much better of a job than DSS ever did.
Mm-hmm.
And I just kind of flubbed my way through it. I knew I could even improve upon it further. And that was the one thing that brought my attention to it. And I said, okay, I've got to learn this. I've got to figure out what's going on here. So if that's any motivation at all to check it out. I know I remember a while back you were in the forums and you had a wedge-mounted CPC, and you're not still using that setup, are you?
Oh yeah, I am.
Oh, you are.
Yeah, I have the wedge-mounted CPC, and I have the Orion Eon piggybacked on it. So I always get some comments on it, but it works for me, so I haven't changed, and I haven't upgraded to a different mount. It looks a bit funky, but it does work for me, so I've kept it. So.
Yep, I remember I had a wedge-mounted CPC, and you came on and you asked a few questions, and then you posted your first image, and I thought I was going to give you some tips, and I immediately flipped and said, wow, she could give me some tips, because I think you're just kind of a natural at it.
Thanks.
Sean is actually asking a question. You said there were some challenges to the H-alpha RGB action. What were the challenges?
Those were the main ones. Were just trying to get it so it's not pink, because a lot of time when you add the HA, it overdoes it and it ends up being a bit pink. So actually trying to figure that out is where I ended up learning lab color in Photoshop and using the hydrogen alpha for the luminance in there, and that seemed to help a lot. So yeah, it helped me learn a few things, and a lot of it's just tweaking and balancing, which is something I didn't have them, like when I first started doing it, combining the hydrogen alpha with the RGB, I didn't balance them as well, so the hydrogen alpha was so much stronger, and which is why it ended up pink. So that's the main challenge of processing it, is just getting it balanced right so you don't end up with overwhelming on one or the other. So.
I think that's a challenge with H-alpha RGB all the time. That just may be a generic challenge, because there's not going to be one size fits all. But
yeah.
I understand exactly the issue. I think we all probably understand that issue. Okay, Dylan O'Donnell, tell us about your APOD. Do you have any social media accounts for sharing your work that we can follow?
Okay. The APOD, that was a long time ago, because I haven't submitted anything there for a long time. That was back in Texas for when the moon occulted Pleiades way back when, and so I did an HDR image with the moon and Pleiades behind it. I've actually that was published as the APOD. I've actually gone back and reprocessed. That was when I was first starting imaging, and I'd learned a lot more since then. So I went back and reprocessed and was able to pull a lot more of the Pleiades out behind it. But yeah, that was the APOD. As far as social media accounts, I do have Facebook. It's same as my website, it's Enterprise Astronomy and Photography. I have that on Facebook. I can pull up a link here and link it. I do have Twitter. It's my personal Twitter, but I also post images on there as well. And if I can find the chat thing, I can post links to both of those since you're interested. So that answered that. I don't have any. I don't use Instagram. I have it for my personal thing, but I don't have it for any master photos. And I don't have. I think just Twitter and Facebook are the main ones. So.
Okay. Josh is joining us from an RV park in Wichita, Kansas. I know he was at the Okie-Tex, so I'm assuming he's on his way home, but he's taking the dark route home. He has a question, doesn't know if it's been covered. When you have multiple images open at the same time and perform an action, it seems to get confused and perform half the action on one image and half on the other one. Is there a solution to this or a way to avoid the behavior?
Yeah, it does that because a lot of times the steps I have, it'll just say go to next image. So if you have more than one open when you're doing it, it doesn't know which one is referring because it's just going to the next one. So the main solution for that is just have the one open that you're working on, which I know can be a little bit of a pain, but because everybody labels their images differently, I couldn't find a good way to have it go to the one you wanted except for just have it go to the next image, which is generally is the one that it's popped up. But I found that because I did originally have it go to the one, have it label something and have it go to that. But then I found a lot of people apparently labeled their images very similar to me, and it kept going to their images as well. And so I just have it going to next image. So unfortunately, it means kind of just opening one at a time and processing through it, and then saving it and do another one if you want. So. Yeah, Josh, I see your question there. Yeah, it's going to go to next image. So if the one you're working on is all the way to the right and you're not clicking on the other ones, then the new tabs that pops up, it's going to be in the next image position. So that is a way to do it as well. So.
I am just sharing those links out to you guys, so you can follow her on Twitter or Facebook. I'm putting in showcase, so I think if you guys are in Q&A, this is the other button that's up on the top.
Okay, yeah, I just typed them into the group chat, so.
And I just shared them up there, and you guys should see them right now. I did see another question come in from Hamza. Have you heard about AstroArt 5? It uses 96-bit computing, and it's wicked fast in pre-processing and stacking. Post-processing is awesome, and the filter selection is amazing. I haven't.
I've heard about it. I have not used it. So.
Something to look into.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I've read about it on the forums and people talking about it, but I don't know. I can only afford so many Astro programs at one time, so so I haven't gotten it yet. So.
Yeah, and Josh says if I put one image all the way to the right, it solves it. Then it seems, or yep, that it seems. Alex was commenting on Maxim, really quick at initial calibration and stacking. He sometimes uses it first just to see if he got a decent picture. Where are you? Where are you living? How long have you been astro imaging? And I take it, oh yeah, that's right, you're also a non-astro imager. You're a terrestrial photographer as well, I believe.
Yes, yes. I'm currently in North Carolina. We just moved here about a year ago. We were in England for the previous 3 years and in Texas before that. I actually started imaging in Texas. It was about 2007, I think was my first image. Late 2007, early 2008. So I've been at it about 8 years now, I guess. Yeah, and it kind of started with me just sticking my DSLR in the end of the telescope because we were in San Antonio and I couldn't see anything through the eyepiece and I wanted to see more, so I started with 30-second subs with that, and it kind of snowballed. Yes, I am a terrestrial photographer as well. I do a variety of stuff. So I'm actually not British, though. I was born in Missouri. We just we move around a lot. So.
And how are the skies in North Carolina?
Depending on where you go, pretty good. I go up to the Stanton River State Park in Southern Virginia. They have Stanton River State Park Star Party there. It's great. It actually just got named a dark sky park. One of, I think it was the 15th or something like that in the world. So yeah, it's pretty good. Where I'm at, I'm about 45 minutes from Raleigh. So I can't really image from my yard, not because of light pollution, but because I've got 120-foot pine trees. So generally, when I try to image, I go out to a glider club where they let me image at, and that's where I did the Bubble Nebula. When they've got nice dark skies there, and then up Stanton River, which is even better than that. I think on the cloudy night when I did Bubble Nebula, trying to catch the sky quality meter through holes, I think it was 20.3, I think 20.8. And then up at Stanton River, it was getting up to high 21s, low 22s last fall. So it's pretty decent. So.
Yeah, that sounds very good. Another question, or no, comment coming in from Josh. You should check out White Top Mountain near Abingdon, Virginia. Reasonably short drive from Raleigh. And
Okay, I'll write that down and give it a try.
Yep, he used to go there frequently. Went to NCSU. And I got a link to AstroArt on my phone. msb-astroart.com if anyone wants to check that out. But yeah, guys out there, ask your questions. Next week, remember, we have Lloyd Smith doing affordable dark-site remote imaging has come of age, and seems to have been a lot of interest to that. I think we would all like to get our telescopes out to dark skies, sometimes without ourselves. Something just jumped around. I think we got a new comment. Oh, I'm sorry. No, Lloyd is the 4th of. Oh, I'm sorry. I got that wrong. Good thing you're in the room, Josh. Josh is next week doing giving us an update on what went on at Okie-Text. Lloyd is the 4th of October. I'm all screwed up this week. Thank you for correcting me, and sorry for that screw up. Any other questions for Anna, or any general comments or questions that anyone out there wants to ask? And I'm jumping back over to Q&A. I don't see anything. So if there's nothing else, I think what we'll do is we'll end up seeing you next week. Next week we'll be back to doing Image of the Weeks. So post your images in the thread. We'll try and reshare it so it pops up to the top for you guys. I do want to thank Annie for coming by and showing us her tools. Basically, check out our website, ePrize Photo. I think your tools are well worth it. There was one other thing. Thanks again to David Alt for last week, and we'll see you next week.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. I appreciate it.
No problem. Now, Annie, you're welcome to stay in the room for a sec, but guys out there, thanks for coming.